If LeBron James decides to come back for his 23rd season, which everybody and their grandmama believes he will, I think a legitimate question to be asked is, what is he playing for?
Tab 2. That's how it started. Stephen A. Smith questioning LeBron's purpose after the Lakers' embarrassing playoff elimination. Now LeBron has clapped back with a message so intense, it's got everyone talking. The feud between him and Stephen A. just escalated in a whole new way. Let's get into it. The playoff comments and the implications. The Lakers' 2024-25 season ended in disappointment when they were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs by the Minnesota Timberwolves in 5 games. The decisive Game 5 on April 30th, 2025 resulted in a 103-96 loss, marking LeBron's second consecutive first-round exit and the 4th time in 5 years that the Lakers failed to advance to the conference semifinals. Following this elimination, on May 1st, 2025, Smith used his platform on First Take to question LeBron's commitment to winning championships with the Lakers. Smith asked, when we talk about resignation, is it possible that LeBron is resigned to, we ain't gonna do but so much here in LA? This provocative question implied that LeBron might have accepted mediocrity with the Lakers, prioritizing his lifestyle in Los Angeles over championship aspirations. Smith expanded on this theory by suggesting that LeBron, with his secure legacy as no worse than the second best NBA player of all time, might no longer feel the same pressure to win titles as he did earlier in his career. He referenced comments from LeBron's agent, Rich Paul, who often emphasizes that LeBron has nothing to prove, suggesting that this mindset could lead to a decreased competitive drive.
And at least once they were swept. Since 2020, LeBron James has gone to the Western Conference Finals. Darvin Ham's first year, all right? But other than that, he's been home in the first round or before then. So you look at the Los Angeles Lakers right now, you look at the rest of the Western Conference, ladies and gentlemen, OKC's not going anywhere.
These comments immediately drew pushback from Smith's co-host on First Take. Jay Williams called Smith's suggestion disrespectful, arguing that it unfairly dismissed LeBron's competitive nature despite his age and accomplishments. Kendrick Perkins similarly defended LeBron, pointing to his efforts to adapt his game and work with new teammates like Luka Doncic as evidence of his ongoing commitment to success. Smith's playoff comments need to be understood in the context of the ongoing feud with LeBron. Coming just a month after their public confrontation and the subsequent media war, these remarks carried additional weight. Many viewers interpreted them not as objective analysis, but as a continuation of the personal conflict, with Smith using his platform to subtly undermine LeBron's reputation and legacy. The timing of Smith's comments was particularly significant. LeBron, at 40 years old, had just completed his 22nd NBA season, averaging 24.4 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 8.2 assists per game. Remarkable numbers for a player of any age, let alone one who had been in the league for over 2 decades. In the playoff series against the Timberwolves, despite the loss, LeBron had performed admirably, averaging 25.4 points per game and nearly recording a triple-double in Game 5. Moreover, LeBron was dealing with a grade 2 MCL sprain suffered during Game 5 after a collision with Donte DiVincenzo, an injury requiring a 3 to 5 week recovery period. This injury forced him to miss commitments, including the 2025 Met Gala, where he was an honorary chair. Smith's questioning of LeBron's commitment to winning came at a time when the player was physically compromised, adding a perceived layer of insensitivity to his commentary. LeBron's post-elimination comments about his future were ambiguous. When asked how much longer he would play, he responded,
"Something I'll sit down with my family, my wife, and my support group and kind of just talk through it and see what happens."
This uncertainty, rather than being respected as a moment of genuine reflection for an aging athlete, became fodder for Smith's speculation about LeBron's competitive drive. Smith's comments also touched on the Lakers' roster construction and LeBron's role in it. He questioned whether LeBron believed the Lakers could realistically compete for a championship, especially after their loss to the lower-seeded Timberwolves. He pointed out the team's lack of depth, particularly at the center position, and the heavy minutes load on LeBron and Doncic, suggesting structural issues beyond LeBron's control.
But if conditioning is an issue with Luka, and the ability of the Lakers front office to do something to improve the roster are all high question marks, where does that leave LeBron James? Is he really playing to win? Meaning, does he believe that they can win with him? Is he playing because he just doesn't feel like relocating? Is he playing so his other son could come into the NBA? These are the questions that people are asking, and I think they're legitimate.
Yet the framing of these observations as questions about LeBron's resignation rather than legitimate concerns about team building struck many as unfair, especially given the Lakers' addition of Doncic mid-season in an attempt to bolster their championship chances. The suggestion that LeBron might be content with mediocrity seemed to contradict his career-long pursuit of excellence and championship success. Smith's playoff commentary also revived the perennial GOAT, greatest of all-time debate between LeBron and Michael Jordan. In a post on X, formerly Twitter, on April 29, 2025, Smith was quoted as saying, especially when he's down 3-1, I don't see something like that in Michael Jordan's career where that happened. Because what LeBron is trying to do in year 22, Jordan did in 13. This comparison, placed in the context of playoff failure, seemed designed to diminish LeBron's accomplishments by contrasting them unfavorably with Jordan's. The implication that LeBron's legacy was somehow diminished by the Lakers' first-round exit ignored the broader context of his career achievements. 4 NBA championships with 3 different franchises, 4 MVP awards, being the all-time leading scorer, and maintaining elite production into his 40s. Smith's focus on playoff disappointment rather than career-long excellence struck many as selective and potentially biased. The reaction to Smith's playoff comments reflected the divided sentiment surrounding the ongoing feud. Some supported Smith's perspective, seeing it as legitimate questioning of a team that had underperformed despite having 2 superstars in LeBron and Doncic. Others viewed it as an extension of Smith's personal grievance against LeBron, using the platform of playoff analysis to continue their feud under the guise of sports commentary. On social media, particularly X, reactions were mixed but leaned critical of Smith. Many fans accused him of using his platform to push a personal vendetta, with one user, at Clutch Points, quoting Smith's GOAT-related jab, "Could it be because I don't believe you're the GOAT?" This suggested to some that Smith's playoff analysis was tainted by his bias against LeBron in the Jordan-LeBron GOAT debate. The implications of Smith's playoff comments extended beyond this specific incident, raising broader questions about the nature of sports media in the personality-driven era. Smith's admission that he uses anything in the news for ratings highlighted how conflict and controversy can drive engagement, sometimes at the expense of balanced analysis. The personal dynamic between Smith and LeBron inevitably colored the commentary, raising questions about objectivity and professionalism in sports journalism. The LeBron-Smith feud also highlighted the evolving relationship between athletes and the media. In March 2025, LeBron had expressed broader frustration with NBA media, criticizing talking heads for on everybody, indicating that his issues extended beyond Smith to what he perceived as a generally negative approach to coverage. This sentiment reflected a growing tension between players who increasingly control their own narratives through social media and personal platforms, and traditional media figures whose role as gatekeepers of sports discourse has diminished.
Earlier this week, we saw the Los Angeles Lakers eliminated from playoff contention at home, by the way, by Ant-Man himself, Anthony Edwards, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Lakers lost in 5-5.
Smith's commentary on LeBron's playoff performance and future also touched on the sensitive topic of retirement. At 40, with 22 seasons under his belt, questions about how much longer LeBron would play were inevitable. However, Smith's framing of these questions in terms of resignation rather than natural career progression appeared to some as an attempt to push LeBron toward the exit. This narrative overlooked significant factors in LeBron's decision-making process, including his stated goal of playing with his younger son, Bryce, who was committed to the University of Arizona and would be NBA eligible in the 2026-27 season. Reports suggested LeBron might aim to extend his career to play with or against Bryce, potentially pushing his retirement to age 42. By focusing solely on championship aspirations and ignoring personal goals like this family milestone, Smith's commentary presented an incomplete picture of LeBron's motivation. The impact of Smith's playoff comments extended to debates about sports media ethics. When a highly visible commentator like Smith has an ongoing personal feud with an athlete, how should this affect their professional analysis? Should they recuse themselves from certain topics or at minimum disclose their personal conflict? These questions remained largely unaddressed by ESPN, raising concerns about the blurring of personal and professional boundaries in sports commentary. Charles Barkley's criticism of both LeBron and Smith, calling the former a bully and the latter's behavior part of an awful week, suggested the feud risked overshadowing the game itself as the playoffs progressed. His description of the situation as a lose-lose highlighted how such high-profile feuds can diminish the reputations of all involved, regardless of who might be perceived as more right in the specific dispute. The playoff comments also had practical implications for the Lakers organization, with LeBron holding a player option worth $52.6 million for the 2025-26 season, which he needed to decide on by June 29, 2025. Any narrative suggesting he might no longer be fully committed to winning could potentially influence team planning and free agency considerations. The suggestion that LeBron might be resigned to mediocrity could affect how other players viewed the prospect of joining the Lakers, potentially complicating their roster improvement efforts. Furthermore, the dynamic between LeBron and his new superstar teammate, Luka Doncic, added another layer of complexity. Smith's comments implying LeBron's declining commitment came at a time when the Lakers were trying to build around the LeBron-Doncic partnership, with the latter viewed as the future face of the franchise. By questioning LeBron's competitive drive, Smith potentially undermined the narrative of a smooth transition of leadership from one generational talent to another. Smith's playoff comments also touched on broader narratives about athlete aging and legacy. By questioning whether LeBron was resigned to no longer competing for championships, Smith tapped into common tropes about declining motivation in aging athletes. This framing ignored the unprecedented nature of LeBron's longevity and productivity at age 40, setting up an unfair standard where anything short of a championship was interpreted as a lack of competitive drive rather than the natural challenges of competing against younger teams. The implications of this feud extended beyond LeBron and Smith to affect the broader NBA media ecosystem. Reports of tension at ESPN's First Take, with production staff expressing frustration over Smith's handling of the feud, suggested organizational concerns about the professional consequences of the dispute. The claim that players and agents were becoming reluctant to appear on the show indicated potential damage to ESPN's access and relationships within the league. As the 2024-25 NBA season wrapped up and all eyes turned to LeBron's next move, his player option, and future with the Lakers, one thing still lingered: the unresolved tension between him and Stephen A. Smith. But how did it all begin? The courtside confrontation. To understand the full context of this confrontation, we need to rewind to early 2025 when Stephen A. Smith made a series of comments about Bronny James, LeBron's eldest son, who was drafted by the Lakers as the 55th pick in the 2024 NBA draft. On January 29, 2025, following Bronny's scoreless performance, 0 for 5 shooting, in a game against the Philadelphia 76ers, Smith stated on ESPN's First Take, "I am pleading with LeBron James as a father. Stop this. We all know that Bronny James is in the NBA because of his dad." These comments, suggesting Bronny's presence in the league was due to nepotism rather than merit, struck a nerve with LeBron James, who has always been fiercely protective of his family. The stage was set for an explosive confrontation, and on March 6, 2025, during the Lakers game against the New York Knicks at Crypto.com Arena, LeBron James decided he had heard enough. During a timeout in the third quarter, with the game still in progress, LeBron approached Smith, who was seated courtside alongside Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel and comedian Larry David. What happened next was captured on video by fans and quickly went viral, generating over 15 million views within 24 hours. According to multiple accounts, including Smith's own recollection on his podcast the following day, LeBron approached him with visible anger and said, "Keep my son out of this and stop with my son. That's my son." The confrontation was brief but intense, with LeBron towering over Smith, who remained seated and chose not to respond in the moment.
Last night I was in attendance at the Knicks-Lakers game, sitting courtside, where during a timeout, I believe it was in the third quarter, I was confronted by none other than LeBron James himself. LeBron had some choice words for me in regards to comments I've made prior about him in regards to his son, Bronny James.
Smith addressed the confrontation on his podcast the day after the incident, providing his perspective on what transpired. He emphasized that LeBron approached him as a father, not as a basketball player, and acknowledged the emotional weight behind LeBron's words. Smith stated, "That wasn't a basketball player confronting me last night. That was a parent. That was a father." He also noted that he chose not to respond aggressively in the moment, partly due to the public setting and the presence of cameras, and partly because he recognized LeBron's emotional state as a protective parent.
He was fiery. He approached me during the game and he said, "Stop effing with my son. That's my effing son. Stop effing with my son." I said, "What? Nah, man, straight up, man to man. Real talk. Stop effing with my son."
This confrontation wasn't merely a heated exchange between two prominent figures in the basketball world. It represented something deeper, a clash between professional criticism and personal boundaries, between media responsibility and parental protection. LeBron James, despite his stature as one of the most scrutinized athletes in the world, drew a line when it came to his son, making it clear that family was off limits. The incident gained additional weight due to its public nature and the high-profile setting. LeBron didn't choose to address his concerns privately, through a phone call or a behind-the-scenes meeting. Despite despite having connections to reach Smith through his agent Rich Paul or business partner Maverick Carter. Instead, he confronted Smith in full view of cameras and spectators, ensuring his message would be heard not just by Smith, but by the wider public. The confrontation raised questions about the boundaries of sports journalism and commentary. Where's the line between fair critique of an athlete's performance and crossing into personal territory? Does being the son of a superstar like LeBron James automatically make Bronny fair game for the same level of scrutiny? These questions have divided the sports community, with some supporting LeBron's protective stance and others defending Smith's right to critique any professional athlete, regardless of their family connections. The footage of the confrontation quickly spread across social media platforms, with fans and analysts weighing in on who was in the right. Many supported LeBron's defense of his son, viewing it as a natural parental response. Others felt that LeBron's approach was intimidating and inappropriate, suggesting he should have addressed his concerns through proper channels rather than confronting Smith publicly during a game. The next day, March 7th, 2025, Smith addressed the confrontation on First Take, describing it as an unexpected encounter. He clarified that his criticism was aimed at LeBron's role in pushing Bronny into the NBA, not at Bronny himself, stating, "I was talking about the position Bronny was put in by his dad." Smith emphasized that he understood LeBron's protective instincts as a father and expressed no anger over the confrontation, though he noted that LeBron could have approached him privately rather than in such a public setting.
Outside of that, feel free to support your boy. Let me go back to me and LeBron James. Ladies and gentlemen, any alluding to Bronny James in this is either accidental or just a reference point to articulate me and LeBron James, because I'm not here to talk about Bronny James.
Smith later clarified on his podcast that he was critiquing LeBron's influence on Bronny's NBA trajectory rather than Bronny's abilities or potential. He noted that his concern was that Bronny was being placed in a high-pressure situation that could be detrimental to his development, suggesting that a longer stint in the G League might have better served his growth as a player. The confrontation between LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith on March 6, 2025, went beyond a simple disagreement between a player and a commentator. It touched on deeper issues of family, respect, media responsibility, and the pressures of living in the spotlight. What began as criticism of a basketball decision evolved into a highly charged personal confrontation that continues to reverberate through the sports world. The aftermath and escalation. The confrontation between LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith didn't end when LeBron walked away from Smith's courtside seat. In the days and weeks that followed, what began as a heated moment evolved into a full-blown media feud, with both sides taking increasingly public and personal shots at each other. The aftermath of the courtside confrontation revealed deeper tensions and resentments that had been building for years, transforming what might have been a forgettable incident into one of the most talked about sports media conflicts in recent memory. In the immediate aftermath of the March 6th confrontation, Smith's tone appeared conciliatory. On First Take the following day, he acknowledged LeBron's perspective as a protective father, stating, "I can't sit here and be angry or feel slighted by LeBron James in any way in that regard." This initial response suggested a potential de-escalation, an understanding of the emotional context behind LeBron's actions. However, the situation took a turn when on March 10th, 2025, a video surfaced of LeBron discussing the confrontation with ESPN analyst and former teammate Richard Jefferson before a game against the Boston Celtics. In this video, LeBron appeared to say, once he talks about, "I'm pleading with you as a father, I can't," indicating that Smith's framing of his comments as a critique of LeBron's parenting was particularly offensive to him. This video seemed to reignite Smith's frustration, setting the stage for a more aggressive response. The shift in Smith's approach became evident when he appeared on Gilbert Arenas' podcast Gil's Arena on March 11th, 2025. There, Smith's tone changed dramatically as he called LeBron's courtside approach weak and bulls. Smith doubled down on his criticism, stating, "I was talking about you. You did this cess," referring to LeBron's influence in getting Bronny drafted and played by the Lakers, rather than allowing him more development time in the G League.
And this shift in his feelings about me, I got it. But I'm gonna get to a bigger level.
Smith also revealed on his own podcast that the confrontation had broader professional repercussions, claiming that other NBA players, including Draymond Green, had cut ties with him over his Bronny comments. This suggested that the dispute was affecting Smith's relationships throughout the league, not just with LeBron himself. The feud reached a new level when LeBron broke his silence about the confrontation during an appearance on ESPN's The Pat McAfee Show on March 26, 2025. Instead of seeking reconciliation, LeBron LeBron criticized Smith for misrepresenting the nature of their dispute, saying, "He completely missed the whole point. Never would I ever not allow people to talk about the sport and criticize players about what they do on the court. That is your job to criticize. But when you take it and you get personal with it, it's my job to not only protect my damn household, but protect the players." LeBron also took a jab at Smith's media omnipresence, comparing him to being on a Taylor Swift tour run right now for constantly discussing the feud. This mockery was clearly intended to suggest that Smith was milking the confrontation for publicity and attention, capitalizing on the drama rather than addressing the substantive issues. The escalation continued when LeBron scored a game-winning buzzer beater against the Indiana Pacers that same day, March 26, 2025. Following this heroic on-court moment, LeBron took to Instagram to post a video of Smith boxing poorly from a decade earlier, accompanied by a mocking womp womp sound effect and laughing emojis. This social media jab transformed what had been a serious dispute about journalistic boundaries and family respect into something more personal and petty, with LeBron openly mocking Smith's physical abilities. Smith's response was swift and equally personal. On his YouTube show and First Take on March 27, 2025, he accused LeBron of being full of it and a liar for misrepresenting his comments. In perhaps the most inflammatory moment of the feud, Smith claimed that had LeBron touched him during the confrontation, he would have immediately swung on him, though he acknowledged he would have gotten my expletive kicked given their physical disparity.
Played in the league 15 years. I can't wait to see you for you to show me this time we had some kind of problem with each other, because I've always thought you were a stud when you were playing in the NBA. I mean, what the hell? You was one of the elite defensive players going on.
Smith's extended rant on First Take, lasting nearly 16 minutes, took the feud to new heights of personal animosity. He made controversial claims, including allegations that LeBron skipped Kobe Bryant's memorial service and Dwyane Wade's Hall of Fame induction. These claims were later debunked. LeBron had attended Kobe's memorial, and Bronny's cardiac arrest had coincided with Wade's ceremony, but the damage to the relationship was already done. Smith's focus on LeBron's character, rather than his basketball decisions regarding Bronny, represented a significant escalation. He accused LeBron of being overly sensitive about his position in the GOAT, greatest of all time debate, suggesting that LeBron's anger stemmed partially from Smith's preference for Michael Jordan as the NBA's greatest player. This framing attempted to recontextualize the feud as being about LeBron's ego, rather than about Smith's commentary on Bronny. The public feud began to attract commentary from other NBA figures, further amplifying its significance. Draymond Green, a Golden State Warriors forward, blasted Smith's comments about LeBron as a father, calling them ass, backward, and suggesting they unfairly targeted James's family dynamics. Green's intervention indicated that the dispute had broader implications within the NBA community, with players feeling compelled to take sides. Charles Barkley also weighed in, criticizing both parties on the Dan Patrick Show on March 28, 2025. He called the feud a lose-lose, describing LeBron as a bully for the public confrontation, and Smith as lame and weak for his aggressive responses. Barkley's intervention represented a voice of reason, suggesting that both men were diminishing their reputations through the escalating personal attacks. Reports emerged in April 2025 of behind-the-scenes tensions at ESPN's First Take, with production staff expressing frustration over Smith's handling of the feud. An insider described the situation as very, very bad, claiming Smith's behavior was alienating players and agents, who were becoming reluctant to appear on the show. This suggested that the feud was having professional consequences beyond the two individuals directly involved, potentially affecting ESPN's access to NBA talent. The escalating public nature of the feud revealed deeper dynamics about media, power, and respect in the NBA ecosystem. Both Smith and LeBron are giants in their respective fields. LeBron is arguably the greatest basketball player of his generation and a media mogul in his own right. Smith as ESPN's most prominent voice and a newly minted $100 million contract recipient, announced coincidentally on the day of the confrontation. Their clash represented a rare collision of egos at the very top of the sports world. The timing of the feud's escalation was particularly notable. Smith had just signed a significant contract extension with ESPN, which was announced on the same day as the confrontation, March 6, 2025. This timing raised questions about whether the high-profile dispute might have been partially motivated by publicity considerations, with both parties aware of the attention their conflict would generate. The personal nature of the attacks from both sides revealed how the boundaries between professional critique and personal personal offense can blur in the high-stakes world of sports media. Smith repeatedly insisted that his criticism was about LeBron's influence on Bronny's career trajectory rather than about Bronny himself, while LeBron maintained that Smith had crossed a line by framing his comments as a critique of LeBron's parenting rather than his basketball decisions. As the feud played out across multiple media platforms, television, podcasts, social media, it demonstrated the increasingly fractured and personalized nature of sports media discourse. Rather than a unified narrative, the dispute generated multiple competing interpretations, with each new statement or post adding another layer of complexity and acrimony. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, while avoiding naming LeBron or Smith specifically, expressed protectiveness toward players, noting the intense social media scrutiny in the NBA. His carefully worded response highlighted the league's awareness of the tensions between players and media figures, and the challenges of navigating these relationships in the social media age. The aftermath and escalation of the LeBron James-Stephen A. Smith confrontation revealed how a momentary courtside exchange could evolve into a prolonged media war, with implications extending far beyond the two individuals involved. What began as criticism of Bronny James's NBA readiness transformed into debates about journalism ethics, parental responsibilities, professional boundaries, and the power dynamics between athletes and the media that cover them. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting and informative, be sure to check out other similar and amazing videos on the screen. I'll see you in the next video.